Listener discretion is advised. This episode features the true account of a serial killer. For those of you who may be triggered by disturbing topics, please skip this episode. Along the rocky coast of Maine, where lighthouses keep silent watch and salty mist clings to the air, lies a city painted in red brick and resilience. Portland is a place of contradictions. Cobblestone streets and cutting-edge art, Victorian homes and bustling breweries. To most, it's a postcard-perfect harbor town, easy to love and easier to forget. But not all scars are visible. And some of the darkest stories begin not in the shadows, but in broad daylight. I'm your host, Dan David. Welcome to City of Nightmares. Portland's past is one of survival. Before it was a city, it was known as Machigon, which translates to Great Neck in the native tongue of the Abenaki. The English arrived in the early 1600s, and the town changed hands, changed names, and burned to the ground again and again. It was razed by indigenous warriors during King Philip's War in 1676, then torched again in 1690. During the American Revolution, British ships fired on Portland, reducing much of it to ash. But the fire that would leave the deepest mark came nearly a century later, on July 4th, 1866. After a day of celebration, a blaze tore through downtown. 10,000 people lost their homes, and still, the city rebuilt. Today, Portland bears a phoenix on its seal. It's more than a symbol, it's the city's story. A harbor town rebuilt from ruin. A cultural capital packed with galleries, indie bookstores, seafood joints, and lighthouses. By 2018, it was crowned Bon Appetit's Restaurant City of the Year. Tourists walk the waterfront. Musicians fill the parks. Portland, by all accounts, is thriving. But behind the postcard charm and farm-to-table oysters, something once took root in this city. Something cold, calculating. A child who grew up in these quiet neighborhoods and harbored urges no one saw coming. Sometimes, a city's greatest horror isn't an old legend or crumbling house. It's a child no one ever suspected. John Joseph Joubert IV moved to Portland at the age of 11 after his parents divorced. On the surface, he was the kind of kid teachers liked. Quiet, polite, top of his class. He attended Cheverus High School, a private Catholic school, and played in the school band. He ran track. He made honor roll. But inside, something was twisted. By 13, he had already begun attacking other children. He stabbed one girl with a pencil, slashed another with a razor blade. He later admitted to nearly strangling a boy on a trail, just to see how far he could go. He got away with all of it. Locals would later call him the Woodford Slasher. But back then, nobody knew who was behind it. Joubert was still just a kid. And then came the murder. 12-year-old Christopher Walden was abducted while walking to school. This time, the brutality was even worse. Joubert forced the boy into a wooded area, made him strip, and then stabbed him repeatedly before slashing his throat nearly to the point of decapitation. There were no fingerprints, no witnesses, until someone noticed a man acting suspiciously near a daycare. A church secretary took down his license plate. That plate led investigators straight to John Joubert. Inside his base housing, police found rope identical to the kind used to bind the two Nebraska victims. They also discovered a hunting knife. Joubert confessed, not just to the two Nebraska murders, but also to the attack that killed Ricky Stetson back in Portland. Forensic odontologists confirmed it. The bite mark on Stetson's body matched Joubert's teeth. It had taken nearly 2 years, but Portland finally had its answer. During his psychological evaluation, experts diagnosed him with obsessive-compulsive disorder, a sadistic personality disorder, and schizoid traits. But none of it qualified as legal insanity. Joubert described a compulsion to kill that began in early adolescence. He told investigators he found relief in causing pain, that he couldn't stop. He was sentenced to death in Nebraska. And while Maine didn't have the death penalty, he was also tried and convicted in absentia for the murder of Ricky Stetson. Joubert appealed his sentence for years. He challenged the constitutionality of the electric chair, filed motion after motion. But in the end, none of it mattered. On July 17, 1996, at the age of 33, John Joubert was executed by electric chair at the Nebraska State Penitentiary. His final words were, simply, "Forgive me." Portland never forgot the boy who became a monster. The memory of his crimes lingers, especially for those who grew up there in the early 80s. Back when kids could still walk to school alone. Back when the worst thing you could imagine was a stranger in the woods. The case of John Joubert became a turning point. It forced the city and the country to take seriously the signs of predatory violence in children. Today, Portland thrives. The tourists still come. The restaurants still shine. But for some, there's always that memory of the innocent kids who never came home, and of the boy next door who smiled and killed without mercy. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, remember to follow the show for more. Now that my short, unexpected hiatus is over, new episodes will continue to drop every Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Next time on City of Nightmares, we'll leave the coast behind and journey inland to Power County, Idaho. There, a haunting legend waits in the murky rivers, the water babies of Massacre Rocks. Until then, I'm your host, Dan David, reminding you all to stay safe out there. I'll be seeing you in the next episode.
Nope.